What is going on a Monday? What is not going on this fine Monday, the first Monday of August? We are close to football, folks. We are less than 3 weeks away from a legitimate college football game featuring Florida State and Georgia Tech. We are less than 4 weeks away. Or you could say 3 weeks and 3 days away from Thursday night college football. Minnesota, North Carolina featured. There is probably one other game that I'm missing because typically Fox and ESPN duel it out on that opening Thursday night. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football for the show that has remained nameless. Thank you so much for your suggestions. They are in the mill. They are being circulated. They are being voted upon as we speak by the Voice of College Football Network, and I am taking them into consideration. Thank you so much for those submissions. And it is not too late. And what is your prize? Your prize is to have the pride of naming our morning show that runs Monday through Friday. So make this a staple. Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Sometimes we will go longer than 1 hour, depending on your interest and support, depending on what other shows that we have. So this particular week, unfortunately, or this particular day, we had to move the Ohio State show, typically on Wednesday, to Monday. So we're coming up with the Buckeyes live show at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Tony Gerdeman, Steve Hellwagon have interviews and practice commitments this week. And that just provides us with better material because they will, of course, be talking to players and coaches and out at the practice field all week. So lock it in with Tony and with Steve as well. All right. Even though I notice once again that the Auburn Tigers are killing it in recruiting. Whoo! Did somebody just pull up a dump truck of cash and just back that up into Hugh Freeze's estate there on the plains? Is that what happened? We know that happened to some degree at another place. I'm not accusing Hugh Freeze of cheating, okay? And it's not cheating. NIL, hey, if they can raise the money, there we go. I have to figure it's that. They are getting a lot of flips. They got another outstanding top 50 player over the weekend, Jared Smith. But this has been going on for a few weeks at Auburn, so they have really kicked it into overdrive. And we will have to discuss some Auburn football, and we will here over the next week or so. But we want to get to the matter at hand. Of course, it's Michigan football. And we first learned from, help me out, Michigan people, Michigan Insider, can't think of his name. Anyway, he broke it earlier last week, just about a week ago, that we would receive the final notice, the final declaration of the penalties and why those penalties are the ones that were determined. But over the weekend, of course, just on Sunday, we learned, courtesy Pete Thamel in particular and Dan Murphy of ESPN, about some of the aspects, components of all this. They give us much more further details into this. Some people on the show last night felt as though some of our callers that there wasn't that much more new material. But yes, the bulk of the story, the basis of the story, the myriad of evidence that we have, and also facts that have been proven and confirmed is still the basis of the story. However, many of the reported facts that came out on Sunday is new information that is mostly damning to Michigan. Damning being a strong word on my part, damaging to Michigan in their case. So check out the show that we did last night, because we certainly went through the most recent information. And in particular, the focus of today's show was to be, hey, let's line it up, because you are all biased. Guess what? I'm biased. Guess what? You're not going to find a show. You're not going to find a show where the host is not biased. The key is to recognize the bias and then to eliminate the bias. Now, if you're a fan, don't eliminate your bias if you don't want to. Just understand that it's present and it's obvious. I have not come across an individual who is not biased. That is impossible. If you weren't, you would be a robot or you would be dead. So you're biased. Guess what? I'm biased. I'm one of the least biased people on the planet concerning college football because I have a job to do and I run a business and I cover college football. And so I have detached myself as much as possible, my fandom, from what the game results are and the facts and the narratives. And this goes back to covering the SEC as I did for 7 years at WCBI in Mississippi. I had all sorts of cohorts at the time that would, from time to time, they would recognize this was not emotionally moving me at all. And of course, we had born and bred Mississippians, Memphis, born and raised people that were attached to these teams. Alabama folks, of course, that I knew well as broadcasters and media people, and they were attached to the SEC. They were attached to their particular teams. And then even people that were from outside the region that came to work, there is a tendency to get attached to the team, the players, when you're talking to these players and coaches every day. As long as they present themselves in a certain way and you have a good rapport with them and you find them to be good people or engaging people, then you start to have a bias toward them. But that really didn't affect me in particular because I knew from an early age what my job was. To the extent when Bryce Drew hit the Valparaiso 3/4 court shot that's always played every March against Ole Miss, I stood up, went to the locker room to do my job and talk to the players and the coaches and then put together my story. And I remember somebody stopping me in the middle. Everybody's milling around talking about, and they're all emotional. And I'm pounding away at my story and trying to put together my edited piece. And I remember people stopping me going, "Did you just watch that? Aren't you fazed by that?" No, I've got a job to do. Okay, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And so we're going to talk Michigan. The link is on X. You should be following the Voice of College Football official account on X. You see the X account and the handle down below, the VOCFB. And then also we have provided the link in the chat. So our aim today is basically to line up, okay, we've got pros and cons here concerning the Michigan case. What is damaging and damning? What is evidence that is damaging to Michigan? What has happened to lead us to believe that they cheated? The cheating had an impact. The cheating was most important aspect of all of this to me, and it's been since day one. Who was involved? Who knew who was involved? Did somebody else initiate it, not Connor Stallions? Though that's the crux of the whole matter, as far as I'm concerned. How much impact it had, I'm interested in. It's important, but it's already been proven that it can't be proven. So let's get past that to a certain extent, although we'll bring it up because they're on the pro-Michigan side would be that the results would tell us that it had little to no impact, right? Okay. So we were going to start a pros and cons list in preparation for the show. I was going to start this list, but then about 14 other things came up between 7:45 a.m. and right now. So we will put this list together as we speak. So we will knock it out from here. So on the con side, if looking from a Michigan perspective, somebody cheated. Connor Stallions cheated. That has been determined. That point was waged back and forth in regards to, is that technically cheating? What's allowed in terms of scouting at other teams' games and scouting from the stands and so forth and so on? It's cheating. That's been verified. Okay, we're not talking about the impact, just that it violates the rules. Okay, so that's a knock against Michigan. Confirmed cheating. Okay. Now, on the pro-Michigan side would be the point that, why is this cheating? Should it be cheating? And I say that because before, sometime in the mid-90s, 1990 to 95, something in that range, this would have been allowed. This was not against the rules. However, in determining that the budgets of college football programs were all over the place, that it was determined by the NCAA that this would no longer be allowed. So, of course, they didn't enforce this rule and implement this rule 3 years ago. They implemented this rule 30 years ago. But there was a time in which it was legal to, and at that time, of course, not everyone had basically no one had a recording device in their pocket. So, but that was allowed. That was allowed. And we've gone through all of the myriad of the rules and the rules changes and why it happened, but I just explained it was a money decision. Had nothing to do with whether this is fair or not fair. So that would be a pro-Michigan angle. Now, back to the anti-Michigan angle would be, regardless of whether the rule was passed a day before the cheating started, it's now a rule. And we've been operating under this rule for 30 years. So the rules were broken. But again, I make the former point about this being legal at one point to say, this is not a case of morality just for the sake of morality or just for the sake of it being some kind of natural law. You know, we could all name certain things that are morally wrong, and I think we would all determine those to be any sensible person who has a positive bone in their body. And then, of course, we have a moral standard that is the standard. Not certainly going to address that right now, but there is a moral standard in this life. But we have a moral standard that most people at least have a list of 5 or 6 things that we could all agree upon. This is not one of those things. This is not lying. This is not stealing. This is not harming somebody physically. Okay. So in and of itself, it is not morally wrong. However, we all have jobs. We all abide by the law of the land to a certain extent. And there are laws and there are policies within companies that have nothing to do with morality. It's just the way business is to be conducted to run an organization. And in this case, concerning all parties involved, there's a competitive nature to the business. And therefore, there's an attempt by everyone involved, certainly the NCAA, to make that a fair proposition. So everyone should abide by the rules. If Michigan or anyone else did not want to abide by the rules, then they should have been campaigning the NCAA for the last 30 years to have this rule changed. And there was also, on the pro-Michigan side, I believe, this is coming back into my memory from months and months ago, that there was a time in which recently it was on the table. I might be wrong on this, but this is coming to mind based on things that I've read over the last several months, that it was on the table at one point recently to remove this rule. However, it's still a rule. All right. So that's pro-Michigan, couple points on that side. Back to the other side. there's only one reason you cheat. And I've yet to have a conversation with anyone that I've raised this point to that has had a good comeback or an explanation of any other reason to cheat than to win a game that you didn't necessarily believe that you could win. Otherwise, there's no reason to cheat. Okay, let's get to this specific case. Connor Stalions cheated. He had interns involved or connections involved in the various stadiums. And I believe the stadium and the count of teams was at least 13 teams, at least 58 occasions. So in more than 58 games from 2021, 22, 23, that is the current count, at least, according to the NCAA and Pete Thamel. On a possible but very slight Michigan favorable aspect to this, very slight, would be that the knowledge that Connor Stalions was cheating by the people that he employed wasn't necessarily proven or indicated in any way that they knew that they were part of some kind of cheating scheme. They were simply given an assignment. I guess they were paid for the assignment. Yes, they were paid for the assignment. That's been confirmed. That's another damning aspect to the Michigan case, would be that, if I'm not mistaken, this has been confirmed, that Michigan paid Connor Stalions. Connor Stalions paid the contacts, the interns, I don't want to use that term loosely, interns, because of course that's a professional and that's a technical connection to the university. And I don't know if that was the case, but whomever was contracted by Connor Stalions, that money was not apparently paid by Connor Stalions. So it's not like, as was initially proposed, well, Connor Stalions had just money laying around and he loved Michigan football so much that he was willing to pay this out of his own pocket. I'm almost certain that we have read in recent days, and even before that, that Michigan flipped the bill. Okay. If I'm in error at any point in any of this, because I did not have a chance to review this again this morning as I attempted to do, certainly call me out. And that's why I put a condition on many of these things. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have? Of course, we've got the situation in which, in terms of the impact, this is what I can't get around, is the sporadic conclusion that coaches and players come to. I'm most fascinated by the coaches themselves. And I don't have a list of coaches or quotes, but I know that in surveying this story countless hours and seeing posts on social media, just the complete range of the spectrum of the likely or potential impact of this, it runs the gamut. It would be nice if there was some near consensus that it had no impact, next to no impact, or wow, this could really alter a football game. I would tend to think it's the, on a specific play, if you've got the information. Otherwise, why doesn't the quarterback just come to the line and tell the defense what's coming and say, we've got better athletes. Let's see who the best team is with the stronger, faster athletes and who can execute better. And we're going to let you know what the play is. Maybe we should play a football season like that. Play a full season, see how that would go. And I guess the most talented teams would win. I guess certainly the most talented, but also the best coach teams during the week that could execute the best. Some combination of those two things, and then obviously the strategy of the game would be almost entirely obliterated. There would be no strategy because everyone would know what's coming. The quarterback would come to the line and tell the defense what they're running, but then the captain on the defense would have to tell the quarterback, this is the defense. If you haven't noticed, okay, we're not disguising anything. We can't disguise anything because we got a new rule here where everybody knows what the other side is doing. So you see, we're in a 3-4 and we've got man coverage. We're not going to come out of that. We're not going, that safety, he's blitzing. And we would just, before the play, every play, they'd stop communicating to the sideline and they'd communicate to each other. Why don't we do that? So it means something. It means something, or you wouldn't do it. Okay. This went to another level with the confirmation of Connor Stallions at the Western Michigan game. Did I mess up the Western, Central, Eastern? It's not Eastern. The other two uniforms look fairly similar. Central Michigan, or maybe Western Michigan. Game, the Chippewas, Central Michigan. It was the Chippewas. Yes, Central Michigan taking on Michigan State. This was not a Central Michigan game against Miami of Ohio. This was Central Michigan taking on Michigan's fierce rival, Michigan State, who Michigan obviously has completely disposed of the last two seasons. They did lose to Michigan State in 2021. Probably didn't take that too well because that was a pretty strong continuation of Michigan State being, I'm not going to say dominant. They've had the upper hand against Michigan for quite some time. Mark D'Antonio had the upper hand on Michigan. He lost a couple games late in his tenure, and then boom, Mel Tucker bounced back in 2020 and 2021 with wins over Michigan. So not only is Ohio State at this point beating their heads like a drum, but Michigan State's winning most of the games against Michigan as well. So anyway, Connor Stallions, but I don't remember the date of the season in which that took place. And shame on Central Michigan for not being able to identify somebody that was not supposed to be on the sideline. All right. We are here at the Voice of College Football. It is 10:29 a.m. and a reminder that you should be here with us each and every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time, to talk college football. So just imagine once the season fires up, we will have guests, as we will before the season, my rants, your takes, comments and questions. We read your comments and questions. Please leave a super chat and your phone calls as well. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a great way to start every day for you throughout the college football season. We will be here every day, Monday through Friday. We got a call coming in from Christian. Christian, what's going on today?
Mark, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. What have you been up to?
Well, I actually just got off my channel breaking the Michigan news and, kind of giving my take on it. I think that you could look at it this way. I think that we all knew that this was going to blow up somehow. I think Michigan did cheat. I think there's foolproof evidence of that has come out from the NCAA and the school and everything going on. But I also look at it this way, Mark, and I want your input on this. This is why I'm kind of calling in. But do you think that even though they cheated, was Michigan the clear-cut team to beat last year still? And that it was like could they have won a title without cheating, you think? Like, was it set up that maybe it was their year, cheating or not?
So you're asking the impossible question. Nobody knows that. I was just making the point before you jumped on that unless you saw differently, every coach, and I respect their opinion a little bit more than players, but coaches and players, the players play the game, of course, and they're in the middle of it. Every college and NFL level coach and player that I heard from, their opinion on the impact of the game was all over the place. And that surprises me. I would think that they would have a rather accurate and similar opinion on how much this could impact a game, but they were all over the place. There were people who said this doesn't impact the game. There were players and coaches who said absolutely this impacts the game significantly. So we had no consensus there. So for us to decide whether this impacted games significantly is foolish to a certain extent. So I'll say this. In Michigan's favor, they were not cheating. We believe that there was no way for them to cheat after the Big Ten stepped in and made suspensions and Connor Stallions was fired and all of that. So their stretch run was apparently clean. And so they beat the three toughest teams on the schedule at the end of the year, including Ohio State. They won a Big Ten championship game. They beat Alabama and Washington. So they beat 4 or 5 of the best teams in the country.
Yeah. Remind me real quick, what day in October? Because I see a comment. It was October when Connor Stallions left the program and got fired and everything like that. But I go back to October. So in that month going forward, they still played, and you could say whatever you want to about their opponents, but they still had to play like Penn State on the road, Ohio State, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But so here's the thing. You look at those scores, they dominated those games 52-10, 52-7, 49-0, 41-13 over Purdue. I wouldn't call it dominant over Penn State, but they still won by double digits 24. Actually, they won by 9. I apologize. There's still multiple possessions, though 24-15, 31-24 against Maryland, 30-24 over Ohio State. That's all after Connor Stallions left. Those are also some games in there where Harbaugh was not coaching. Remember, he came back in the playoffs, though, and they dominated Washington, and they survived and won in overtime against Alabama. So, and then they shut out Iowa in the Big Ten title game. So, I mean,
okay.
I
First of
really
all, everybody
believe,
shuts out
I
Iowa.
don't,
So that's no
oh,
big
I
thing.
know.
Tennessee shut out Iowa. Penn State shut them out. So
Yeah.
anybody with a pulse shut out Iowa. But
Yeah.
anyway, let's go back to that. So the 3 best teams that Michigan played, I'm trying to determine anybody else. No, their non-conference schedule was atrociously bad. Their Big Ten schedule was weak. It was backloaded. So the last 3 weeks of the season, they played the 3 best teams: Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State. All 3 of those games, Michigan was the better team in all 3 games. The Ohio State game was the closest game. The Maryland game was extremely close. If Talia Tagovailoa doesn't throw away 2 or 3 passes in that game, Maryland pulls off an upset. So Maryland played them extremely well. And of course, the Ohio State game went down to the wire. The Penn State game, Michigan controlled. It was still a close game. It was decided with about 4 minutes left, 5 minutes left. But Michigan was the better team in all 3 of those games. No question. If you're just watching football, there's nothing about cheating. Michigan's a better team. The Iowa game, yes, they played with half a team, as they always do. Then they get to Alabama. And you being an Alabama fan, of all, Alabama played the closest game against them. Of course, they could have won the game very easily. They hit them down to a 4th down to win the game. And then, yes, they played extremely well against Washington. So, yeah, that's a point on Michigan's side that they won a national championship. Now, if you're asking me if they would have won the national championship without cheating, I would tell you I would tell you that, of course, we don't know, and anyone who says that they know is a moron. So we
But we
we
could
don't
say,
know, but you can make an
yeah,
estimation. And my estimation
yeah,
is that was Michigan definitely the best team in the country? Well, even with the cheating, I don't know that they were the best team in the country. I don't know that I think that they would have beaten Georgia or beaten Alabama 5 times out of 10. I don't know. I know that they by their play on the field, they earned the national championship. They were that much better than Alabama, and they were about that much better than Ohio State. But there's tons of national champions that did not roll through their opponents. So, yeah, I believe that Michigan. Man, it's tough for me to say that they earned a national championship after cheating.
yeah.
But if that was taken away, then it would be an odd conclusion for the NCAA to make, that we're going to vacate these wins before we took away Connor Stallions, but you still get to keep your national championship, and your record turns into like 9-3 or something, or 7-5, because you've got to vacate these wins, but you
Yeah.
still won the national championship.
I just like it's you had really good teams in recent years. We go back to 2019 LSU. Um, we go to 2020 Bama. We go to 2021 Georgia in recent years. Georgia goes back to back. We've seen that the last couple years. We have seen teams rise up on occasion, go undefeated, or even if they drop a game, they go and they win it all, and they were the best team because they got the job done. This is obviously a completely different case. Really, all I was trying to say was, could they have done it without the cheating scandal? And like you said, I think I would agree with you. Maybe we never know. I mean, that's just going to be one of those mysteries in college football for the
Oh,
rest
I
of our
believe they
lives.
could. I believe that they had a good enough team to win a national championship.
I do
However,
too.
if we're going to conjecture on Michigan's side, let's also conjecture on the other side. When was Connor Stallions deploying these little secret agents in these stadiums? When was this cheating going on? Do you know what years these were going on?
The years they made the playoffs in 21 and 22,
21, 22, 23. Okay.
all the
Before
years
that,
they
what
beat
was
Ohio
Michigan
State,
accomplishing before that?
beating Ohio State, winning the Big Ten. Oh,
Yeah.
before
Before
that,
that,
they struggled. They struggled. They couldn't get the job done.
they were going 8-4, 9-3 every year, and they couldn't beat Ohio State. They couldn't even come close to beating them. And they didn't play in 2020. I think anyone with a brain knows that Ohio State would have drilled them in
Yeah.
2020. And then, boom, they become a different football team. Now they made coaching changes. And other than making coaching changes and Harbaugh getting a kick in the rear by the administration to say, we're cutting your pay in half, get with it, and them turning over their coaching staff, it's not like they, I will, because this show is all about point, counterpoint, pros and cons. Their recruiting was no better. Their personnel that was recruited and signed no better after 2020. However, there is a thing called the transfer portal, and they made key additions. I'm not going to rate their upgrades in the transfer portal to be anything close to what like Florida State did, but they made good additions in the transfer portal.
Yeah. There was something else I wanted to bring up. I don't know. It slipped my mind. I do think that. Oh, I know what I wanted to bring up. I apologize. So, okay. So Jim Harbaugh leaves and goes to the Chargers. Was that, and he did it pretty quickly. I mean, it wasn't but a couple weeks after winning the national championship, he goes to LA. Did he knew this was going to blow up this off season, and he got out of there before they could say anything to him and go to his office, you think? Or do you think he just wanted to go to the NFL?
You are bringing up another point that Only Jim Harbaugh and whomever he confides in knows that for sure. So again, we cannot say anything for sure. And again, I will say anybody who says for sure this is what he did, because the way you lay it out will take the anti-Michigan side and say, yes, he knew this was coming down, the hammer was coming down, and he got out of there. But
Yeah.
on the other side, Harbaugh's been flirting with NFL teams every offseason. He's been an NFL head coach. He just won a national championship. We know he wants to win a Super Bowl. He came within one play of winning a Super Bowl. This has always been something that appears to be his goal, to be successful both at the NFL level and at the college level. And he came to Michigan and he accomplished what he set out to do. Not that he ever stated it this way, but he won a national championship.
Yeah, you did. He did. And he got his, mission accomplished at Michigan. And we'll see what he can do with the Chargers. I think the Chargers are a good team. I don't think he's going to find a way to. I hope he doesn't find a way to cheat over there, but because he's got the pieces. Like he's the guy that's going to come in, help the defense, and help Justin Herbert and company. But Mark, that's all I got, man. I really love and appreciate you guys, and thanks for taking my call. I do have to run, and I'll keep it up, on here, and stay tuned for updates, I guess.
Thanks, Ballard. Appreciate you being here. Good to see you. Have a good day.
You too, Mark. Thank you.
It's our guy, Ballard. Ballard Sports Media. It's right here on YouTube. All right. D-Rock Irish, we appreciate you being here. Good morning. Not going to go on the Irish podcast. I need to listen to the voice of college football. Reason. Well, thank you for that. Hopefully we're delivering it. We were here last night. So on one hand, I hate to regurgitate a bunch of stuff that I said last night. On the other hand, I learned this from ESPN for sticking around that place for 19 years when they would talk LeBron, Tom Brady, Tim Tebow. Oh, 20 minutes later, LeBron, Tim Tebow. Dun, dun. And I would be like, what are they? This is so annoying that they talk about the same stuff over and over. It recycles every 20 minutes the entire day. Oh, not everyone's sitting here all day listening to ESPN. But hey, I was getting paid to do so, but I was, so you understand that there's a balance, because some of you are here a considerable amount of time. Some people fly by for 5 or 10 minutes. A lot of people make comments in the comment section thinking that I had not covered something, never thought of something. And I don't jump on them, because I know you can't watch everything that I produce and know everything that I've ever said. But then I have to remind them, yes, if you've watched over the last 9 months, we have said this and this and this and this and this. Not just concerning Michigan, but concerning all sorts of things. But D-Rock Irish, this will be a treat for you, Notre Dame fans, and really anybody who loves college football. Tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern time, we will be releasing our conversation with Brian Driscoll, Irish Breakdown. Brian is phenomenal, knows Notre Dame football like no one I know, and knows his stuff. Great college football conversation. We went deep across the board, offense and defense for Notre Dame, expectations, Marcus Freeman's development as a head coach. We hit on all those things. The one thing I wanted to hit Brian with that I forgot, even though I wrote it right in front of me, recruiting. A lot of speculation concerning recruiting and Notre Dame losing it on that side of the operation. And of course, they're about to lose this quarterback Deuce. There is rumors that he is headed to Auburn. We shall see. Wanted to talk to Brian about that, but we certainly decided we're going to get together more often, and we expected to be at somewhere in the every other week category. Maybe every week. We'll see. But again, Brian Driscoll, Irish Breakdown at 6 p.m. Eastern. We've got the Ohio State show coming up at 11 a.m. That's in 15 minutes. All right. We have served up quite a few pros and cons for the Michigan case here. What else? Ballard provided some great stuff there, but I was on a roll and I had in mind, I didn't write anything down in terms of pros and cons. I should have done that. That was the intent to prepare for the show, is to have a long list of pros and cons and point, counterpoint. So I'm just trying to retrieve them mentally right now. I heard somebody bring up the other day, I don't believe this. I'm not going to add this into the equation in future years. But would this be a minor bit of evidence? These 13 players that were drafted off the Michigan football team, how good are they going to be? How good are they expected to be? Well, that's dependent on their draft position. I think in no way am I personally going to be evaluating these 13 Michigan players to say, well, they were overrated because they were getting signals and they turned out to be better in college on the field than they really were, or vice versa, that this justifies that, shoot, these 13 turned out to be productive NFL players. They were really that good. The transfer portal has given us a component in all of this, not just concerning, of course, this scandal, but in evaluating football teams, where I will stand by the talent evaluation of the recruiting services, and however that comes to be, their rating, their ranking, the accuracy as a whole. Now, everybody's going to bring up aberrations. There are aberrations all over the place. The 3 stars that become superstars, the 5 stars that are busts. Yes, we know that because we've got, what is the number? We've got about 3,000 players that get signed each year. So there are aberrations all over the place. But in total, all you have to do is look at recruiting rankings, national championship contention. Just take the recruiting rankings, the total team talent composite, and then take it right to the national championship contention. And it's the top 5 or 6 lined up. However, now we've got a transfer portal. So it's not nearly as analogous. The direct line from recruiting to results, I'm going to say it's about 70% of what it was. A large chunk of it is much different. Comments? Anyone? Comments? Anything there? Nothing right now. Again, we're 10 minutes away from Buckeyes Live. And our hope is that you would stop by here and make this a staple in your day, each and every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time, through the football season. Just imagine, in the middle of a football season, after week 1, going into week 2, Monday through Friday, we're going to be here to talk all the games, look back at the previous games, look ahead, do previews on the games coming up. We'll have guests all over the place. I did not contact anyone today because of this Michigan scandal for this particular show, but we will have guests, of course, excellent guests. And you talk about great guests. At noon Eastern time, I'm going to be talking to Tony Barnhart, formerly of CBS and ESPN, writes all sorts of exceptional college football books. Tony Barnhart is our conversation today at noon. That'll be released sometime this week. Phil Steele was just on. He's coming back. So we are pleased to be one of the very few outlets in which Phil Steele, in his ridiculous run of media stops throughout the summer promoting his magazine, that he is backtracking for the Voice of College Football. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that he only does this for us 3 times. So we've got Phil Steele coming back up in a couple of weeks, and he is sitting down with the USC guys who have requested him. And I said, we'll see if we can get that together. We have, and so we appreciate Phil Steele gracing us 3 times here at the Voice of College Football this summer. And then, as I mentioned, Brian Driscoll, Irish Breakdown, today at 6. That video is released. Please check it out. It'll be worth your while. Peter Burns, SEC Network, was on a few days ago. We dropped that video as well. Steve Dace, a couple times in the last few weeks as well. And John brings up a good point here. You should always be in tune to Michigan Live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, but for obvious reasons, this would be a good time to watch. The guys at the Michigan channel, John, TJ, Ferris, they will be live when the story breaks, when the penalties are announced. However, they've got their set Tuesday show. Oh, no. Yeah. Okay, this is just promoting tomorrow nights. I thought I saw a Wednesday in there. Tomorrow night, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So get their perspective. And these guys are more than welcome and gracious to take on fans from all over the place. Ohio State fans, Michigan State fans, Notre Dame fans. Just be a college football fan, and you will enjoy the Michigan show. We've got a Texas show at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That's on the Texas channel, which reminds me, please subscribe to the SEC channel. It's in the description section of this video. The SEC channel, that is our push right now. Let's get it to 1,000. Thank you so much for doing that. Then I'm on tonight with Tim and with Matt. That's the USC show, the Trojan Conquest live show, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 Pacific. I guess we've done all the damage we can. I know that we did not exhaust all the Michigan pros and cons in terms of what's on the side of the Michigan case, the Michigan argument, what is going against them. I do believe that what Pete Thamel reported on Sunday is damaging to Michigan. I do not believe that it's damning to Michigan. I believe that, again, we continue to have evidence that doesn't look good, but it is not the smoking gun type evidence. Now, what the NCAA is going to be able to do with the logical thought, whether they are going to be able to find evidence to support the logical thought that you have a staff assistant cheating and he simply just keeps this intel to himself, or he relays this to the players as a rogue entity, and that the coaching staff, including the defensive coordinator, which I'm getting my years, Mike McDonald, Jess Minter, I think they were 21, 22, 20, yeah. That they just said, hey, we're calling this play, we're calling this defensive alignment, and then, oh, we trust this guy when he jumps in and says, we don't know why. We believe he's that good at whatever he's doing. Sign stealing, which is legal on the field, sign stealing. So that's fine. So he has stolen the signs in the moment, and we trust that. It's working. Go with it. And we will not question him any further to know how is he doing this. Because, of course, we hired him, and he had this very mysterious espionage kind of slant to his social media resume, at least on LinkedIn. I do not have that memorized verbatim, but I remember that was the talk, of course, for those people that investigate that sort of thing. And then we all benefit from that. Is that, again, if Michigan or anybody else was just simply stating, we're competitors, we hire good people, we hire football knowledgeable people, we hire people with these sets of skill sets for our staff and our assistants that, of course, assist the coaching staff, the analysts, and so forth, that why they would be drawn to that resume. Or if he was just that adamant. We know that he's been a Michigan fanatic his whole life. That they just, we hear that all the time in the business world, just be that fanatical and just be that driven and just prove to your potential boss that you have to be hired. Maybe he did that. But if I'm looking at that resume, that social media post, that presentation of a potential worker, a candidate for a job, No, thank you. Don't want anything to do with you. Except, okay, I will give the condition back to Michigan, except, hey, can you steal signs legally on the field? If you're that good, you're our guy, and you love Michigan. It is quite the drama. In some ways, unlike anything we've ever seen. It has all the components of scandal and the pros and cons, and not just cut and dry scandal. This was wrong, and it was obviously wrong. Boom, there's the murder. Boom, convicted, done. Not that obvious of some kind of serial killer, but it has a lot of vague conditions and a veiled set of dots that have not been completely connected. So it has all the makings of being a more intriguing, interesting scandal, because it's not complete one way or the other. It's not a slam dunk either way. Except we know Michigan, I'll put that in quotes, Connor Stallions cheated. Again, it all comes back to me, for me, to who did he communicate that information to? How much did they know? How much did they implement? There we go. We're talking Ohio State football in just a few minutes over on the Buckeyes channel. Maybe we'll say something about this. Maybe. So please join us over on the Buckeyes channel right now, right here at the Voice of College Football.